Welcome to the Nerdstalgic Podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to the final Nerdstalgic episode of 2022. I am Luke, as per usual, and I'm good, and I hope you're all good, as per usual. We've got a bit of a fun one today, but also a very mellow one, very slow one. I decided that as this is the end of my first physical year of doing podcasting, it's not my anniversary yet. My anniversary 1 year anniversary is technically on the 6th of January, but I figured because I started at the start of January technically, and I've made it all the way to December, I would do a yearly wrap up because as this is in a way my first proper almost physical year, negating a few days missing, but overall it's my first proper year as I count it anyway. So I figured of doing a big wrap up to say thank you and to highlight a few things and highlight a few people, and I thought it'd be really fun. So there's no business or anything like that. There's no sort of promos. It's literally I'm going to get straight into it, and we're going to have a bit of a fun time, and just have a little chat. Well, mostly I say chat. It's mostly just me talking to you folks, and then you guys listening. But one thing I do want to say before the year's end is if you don't follow me on Twitter, please do at Nerdstalgic_pod. Basically, if you follow me on there, you'll get updates and everything that I'm doing, and every game I'm playing, every movie I'm watching, TV show, book I'm reading, all that jazz really, and me just being stupid mostly. So if you follow me on there, you get all that stuff. As you can tell, it's very informal. Like, I'm not really formal anyway in my videos. I mean, episodes or whatever. I always get confused. I always call them videos, but they're not. They're just audio sort of episodes. But I'm always informal anyway, but I figured this would be a lot more loosey-goosey, so you will see me being very more informal than usual, because I'm just relaxed, I'm chilled, I'm lovely warm, I'm cuddled up, and in a nice, I think it's called an hoodie. It's like a poncho, but it's like a blanket at the same time. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's keeping me warm all winter. I love it. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. Also, we're currently, as of yesterday, which would be the Wednesday, because today it's the Thursday recording this, I reached 55 subscribers on YouTube. And I'm incredibly grateful. To be honest, I never thought I'd ever get that far on YouTube. When I started my YouTube up this year, I didn't think I would even scratch 5 or even 10 subscribers before year's end. And I've managed to get to 55, which again, in the grand scheme of things, yes, that's not that impressive when you look at all the other YouTubers and even other people that are just, what everybody else is doing on YouTube. It's not huge, but the way I see it, considering that I'm only really, like, I'm not doing any video, I'm not doing any wacky weird thumbnails or any gotcha sort of like when people do like, oh, you wouldn't believe what this person did next, watch the video to find out, those gotcha sort of headlines, quotes. I don't do any of that. It is basically the headline of whatever I'm talking about, and then usually the background is just the waveform, the big image that moves whenever I talk on the actual video, wherever it gets formatted into when I use the app and software that I use to do it with. Considering that I only do those sort of things, I don't do any videos, and I'm just literally talking, and to know that 55 people actually listened and go, yeah, I like the cut of his sales, and I want to listen to him on the weekly, is really an accomplishment, and I see it as a true achievement. Now, granted, I would be happy with at least 5 people, but to know that I've got the extra 50, it's generally heartwarming. And it's the same with Twitter as well. I never thought I'd ever get as high as I'm on Twitter. I think currently, as of recording this, I'm about 831, 832 followers, which again, I never thought I'd ever get that many people. Considering when I started, I had I think about 100 and something when I started. And those were all just my friends and people that I'd met online and stuff like that. And then just to blow up as quick as I have, it's just incredible, and all the interactions and stuff. And the reason why I'm being so gushy about the Twitter and the YouTube is mainly because it puts me in a good stead for what comes next is basically I just want to thank everybody. Um, I just want to say thank you to people that are listening to this on Spotify, people listen to it on Anchor, Google Podcasts, anywhere where you're listening to it. Thank you. Again, I started up the YouTube because I had a lot of people basically message me because I would tell them like I've got a podcast. I'm like, great, you got a podcast. Where is it? How can I listen to it? And obviously, me being quite new at it, I was like, oh, it's on Spotify, assuming that everybody had Spotify because whenever you hear anybody talk, it's always my Spotify playlist, and I listen to music on Spotify. So again, I assumed that everybody had it, only to find out that most people don't have Spotify and are not really wanting to get it. So I figured, well, what's the way to be the most accessible, but also it's easier for me to having to actually work out how to use it and to format it and have a way that is easy for other people but easy for me, because again, I'm usually really always busy. I've got tons of hobbies, and with my volunteering and stuff like that, it's hard to find the time to do a lot of things. So I figured, well, I already have a YouTube. I don't technically use it. I set up a YouTube, and it's mostly just so I can keep up to date with all my like other people that I subscribe to, like the Angry Joe show and stuff like that, so I can get like gaming news and um, be up to date on that side of stuff. So I only really used it for that. So I figured, well, I'm not using it for anything other than just watching videos. So might as well, rebrand, redo it. Put a new banner on, put my podcast icon in, change my name on it, and then just start sort of funneling things there. And it was actually thanks to the ladies at Jew Generation. I sat down and had a chat with them, and they basically told me that the app that they use, which I'm currently blanking on, um, I think I'm really blanking on the name. If I remember it later, I will say it. But it's Headliner. That was it. It was the Headliner app. I don't know why I was blanking on it then. But they basically told me about the Headliner app that they use whenever they format any of their episodes onto YouTube into a YouTube format. And I figured, well, I'd give it a go. So I looked into it. It's free to use. It's quite easy and simple. As long as you link in your podcast um, to their system, that every time you upload a new episode, it will basically upload there. And you can either set it to automatically, as soon as you release a new episode, say on Anchor or Spotify or whatever, it will instantly go to Headliner, and they will format the video for you, and then they will sort of publish it for you. So they could either do it for you automatically, and then you can download it through your emails, or it will just do it automatically to YouTube, Twitter, and all that sort of thing. I like to do it manually because I just like having the control. So I just tend to format it myself manually. Depending on how long the the episode is, depends on how long it takes to format. Usually under an hour, but again, it depends on the content and how many breaks that you do and that sort of thing. I don't. It's just weird. I find that the less breaks you have, the easier the faster it goes. Again, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, and maybe it's my internet connection. Or I don't know, but it's just one of them weird things. But it doesn't really take that very long. Usually takes about under an hour to format, and then once it's up, then I upload it to YouTube, and I go from there. But one thing that I found with YouTube that I really, really love is the fact of when I ever make an episode, I never make an episode. I hope every episode that I make succeeds, and I hope that every episode that I do, people love it and enjoy it. But that's not always the case. And granted, I am an indie podcaster. I'm not Joe Rogan. I don't have the numbers. I've only quite recently gotten to the point where my average listener, my average download is around the 5 to 6 ratio. Beforehand, for a very, very long time, I would be lucky just to get 2 to 3, and one of those was actually me during the editing process. So technically I'd only be getting 2 people listening, which again, I'm not moaning or I'm not arguing about it. It was just the fact of it does get disheartening when you make an episode and you put a lot of work into it and you don't get a lot of people listening to it, no matter how much you publicize it. You know what I mean? And one thing that I love about YouTube is the fact of it really reinvigorated my love and creativeness for doing this. Not that I'm saying I ever thought about giving up, but I did just think about slowing down a bit more instead of doing one episode every week, an episode every 2 weeks. That way, it's the fact of I can sort of put more research in, and hopefully that would be a way to get more people in. As you do, you try to rejig and rethink about ways you do things to hopefully try to be somewhat successful. But one thing I love about YouTube was the fact of when I would upload an episode there that didn't do very well on the podcast side, on Spotify and stuff like that, I would post it to YouTube, and it would get tons and tons of views. Like not huge amounts. Always like I haven't broke 100 yet, but for example, the Pinocchio episode that I did about Disney, I think on my normal podcast, I think on Anchor it says about 8 to 9 downloads, which is pretty impressive, which I'm really, really impressed with, to be honest. But when you look at YouTube, it's got about 44 views and high retention rate. So people actually sat, but at least half of that 44% of people actually sat and listened to it almost all the way through. You know what I mean? And that knowing that reinvigorated me. And it happened with the Buzz Lightyear one. It happened with the Hocus Pocus 2 review. And for example, another episode that I did the episode about Robots, the animated movie from 2005. But again, really loved that film. I had a lot of fun watching it, a lot of fun reviewing it. Didn't do very well. To be honest, it is one of my lowest viewed episodes, sadly, with I think 3 to 4 downloads. But on YouTube, it's about 12 to 14. Again, I know it's not a big jump, but the fact of it reinvigorated me to know that, the idea of it worked on so many ways. Like I did it originally to be accessible, to make sure that everybody could listen to my show. That if you didn't have Spotify, you could go somewhere else that you could easily access it without needing to make an account, because you don't need an account to watch YouTube. Obviously, it would be grateful if they did, because they could subscribe and like and share and all that jazz. But even if they don't, it's still the fact of they can listen to it, and it's just nice to know that my content's getting out there, that anybody and everybody can listen to it, and that's kind of the point of doing a podcast. But also, again, it was just lovely to see the fact of if an episode fails on my main show, that I have elsewhere where it can succeed. I love that idea. So, YouTube has been a fantastic boon for me this year, creatively, reinvigorating me, making me want to keep doing what I'm doing, knowing that what I'm doing does work. Just because it doesn't work here doesn't mean it doesn't work elsewhere. So it's given me the spark and the kind of kick up the arse to kind of believe in myself to keep doing what I'm doing. So I have to thank it for that. Again, Twitter again has also been amazing. As I mentioned, I'm now 831 followers and growing on the day, and I appreciate everybody that follows me, takes the time to like and retweet and all that kind of stuff. It really, really helps. So yeah, I just wanted to say, to start off this episode, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who supported me, who helped me, who've listened on YouTube, who've followed me on Twitter, who have liked and subscribed, who's liked and retweeted stuff. People who listen regularly, people who listen to all my stuff in bulk, because I know there are people out there who do that, because I get loads of messages being like, oh look, I've just caught up with so and so episode, sorry I'm behind. I'm like, no, it's fine. He goes, oh no, I love this episode, I've just got loads to listen to. Again, no, it's fine, take your time. So I do have those listeners who listen to it straight away, and the people who bulk it. I'll be honest, I'm a bulker. I have so many podcasts that I listen to. I let them bulk up over the week, and then over the weekend, I listen to them all over the weekend. So I might not do it day one, but I eventually get round to it. So there are people out there like that, and again, I thank all those different people. And overall, I'm just grateful. I really am humble. I really am grateful, and you mean so much to me. You all do. And thank you. Generally, I know it sounds like I'm coming to the end. I'm not. There's loads more to talk about. I just wanted to start off and just to saying thank you to everybody. I really, really appreciate it. So now that I've sung your folks' praise and spoke for about 14 or so minutes, I'm going to I think I wasn't planning on any breaks, but I think I will sort of section this bit off here, and then the next bit I'll just do it as a complete. So there'll only be one break this episode. So don't worry, no loads of breaks or anything like that. This would be just this one unplanned, spur of the moment break, so I can have a swig of water because I spoke more in this section than I thought I would, if I'm being honest. Mainly because I'm just really happy. I'm just really grateful at the moment. But we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about my highlights of my podcasting year of 2022. So, yeah, see you in the next bit. And we're back. So I figured I'd start up this big wrap up episode to start with my favorite episodes and topics that I spoke about this year. In total, I think I've done 70 to 71 episodes this year so far, and that's including the main quest and the bonus side quests that I did around about the beginning to middle of this year. I don't really do as many bonus side quests as much anymore. And again, it's not that I don't enjoy doing them or anything like that. It's just generally the fact of I used to do them for like when I was talking about Book of Boba Fett and not Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett and stuff like and Moon Knight and stuff like that. But I basically figured that well, those shows were bits of a letdown. You know, they had some good bits, some bad bits, and I struggled to find things to talk about them. And I just realised that I was putting too much. I was doing 2 episodes a month, and a week. I mean, every week, and I basically realised like my other main quest stuff is suffering, and I'm getting tired, and I haven't got the time or energy to do 2. So I figured if I just do one big one each week, it'll be easier. So that's why I decided just to do main quest. But I still want to do the side quests, bonus side quests here and there. And if the topic comes up for them in the future in season 2, then they will come back. But they're not completely gone. So I know some people do enjoy the shorter side quests, and they will make a return in season 2. It's all just finding when the right topic comes up to do them, really. So when the time comes, they will return. But as for my favorite episodes and topics, I've got a list here, so there's got a few, and I'm going to basically list them off, and then we're going to talk about them each a bit briefly. So to start off, I've got Amelie and Me. This was the episode that I did where I basically sat down and I spoke for over an hour about my love for the French movie Amelie, which is directed, and I always say his name wrong, Jean-Pierre Jeunet. This is quite simply perfect. This is one of the best movies I've ever watched, and it is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, if there was a list of my top movies ever, at the top of that list would be Amelie, and below that it would be Reservoir Dogs. Those are my 2 favorite movies of all time. Like, if they're on TV, which Amelie's never on TV, but if Reservoir Dogs is ever on TV, I'm watching it no matter how halfway through it is. I love that film. But what I wanted to achieve basically when I did that episode was, before I did it, I realized that it felt like I'd stumbled on the Holy Grail. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but bear with me. I felt like I'd stumbled on something magical, something wonderful, something beautiful, something just utterly life-changing. Because it was for me. It opened my mind, it opened my world to different possibilities, for different ideas of storytelling, different ideas of movie making, and different ideas of a character with autism actually being shown and given proper dues, and a character who actually is autistic, does have those sort of struggles, but to actually see how they see the world is absolutely a gorgeous thing. And I just wanted to share that with people. I wanted to kind of bring it into the forefront, because Amelie, again, it's a French film. It's not very well known unless you are big into movies or you did media in school or something like that. You probably don't know about this movie. So my main goal for that episode was not just to break it down and not just to kind of explain to people the ins and outs of the movie and my interpretations of certain things in the movie, but it was also to kind of get people basically aware of the film and just say, even if you don't like subtitle movies, or you don't like movies that are not in your language, this is definitely a film that should be watched and should be given a go at least once in your life. And if you watch it and you don't get the same response, that's fine. Not every movie is gonna, or every book or video game or song or whatever is going to resonate with everybody. But just giving it a go and seeing how you feel is still, pretty commendable. And especially now, it's kind of funny, since doing the Amelie episode, I've noticed, and again, I'm not saying that I did it. I'm not saying that I managed to manifest it. It'd be nice to think I manifested it. I spoke about it so much, but it made me laugh. Not longer after I published that episode, that Amelie appeared on Netflix, on English Netflix, and you could literally go onto Netflix and you could watch it there. And as soon as it did, I told all my friends, and I put it all over Twitter, be like, if you haven't seen Amelie yet, you've got no excuse. It's on Netflix. Nearly everybody has Netflix. I'm sure your brother or your dad or your sister or your cousin, your best friend has Netflix. Rob their password and just use it just to sort of watch Amelie. I just said to people, you got no excuse now. Like, it's there, it's out, it's free, technically. Go watch it. And a lot of people did. I had a few people who went out and watched it and they loved it. And some people were like me, where it changed their world, and they liked the idea of actually seeing the world through a character who had autism, who had a disability, to see how people like myself see the world. You know what I mean? And for that, it's a very beautiful and wonderful thing. And I haven't seen anything like it since. And yeah, it's just a beautiful movie. Jem, I don't want to get into it because I'll be here all day, but literally I've got to go to the next topic. Otherwise, I'm going to be here talking about Amelie, and this is not what this episode's about. But if you want to, if you haven't listened to the episode, because it is one of my earlier ones, and I know a lot of people don't tend to go back to the earlier stuff. They kind of watch and listen to the new stuff only, which is completely understandable. If that's fine if that's what you want to do. But if I've interested you enough, I highly recommend go back and listen to my Amelie and Me episode. I'm quite proud of the name as well. When I thought of that name, I was really, really proud of myself. Still am now, to be honest. It always makes me smile whenever I say Amelie and Me. But I think it's like episode 8, episode 10. Oh, no, episode 8. I think it is. It's near the bottom. Should be easy to find. Scroll down, find it. Definitely give it a listen to. You, I think you really, really enjoy it. The next one, it was my Bungie versus 343 Halo discussion. This is next to the Amelie one. Is one of the episodes that I'm most proud of. It was a two-parter. Basically, the first part where I broke down Bungie's Bungie and Halo. So I basically did a whole. It felt like a dissertation, and in a way, I guess you could kind of say it was. Where I looked at the history of Bungie, and I basically broke down how they developed Combat Evolved, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo ODST, Halo Reach, and basically I looked at each one of it, each era, and I basically took my interpretations again of what I thought Bungie was trying to say with not just Master Chief, but what direction they were taking the Halo franchise in, and the other side of it was then part 2 was looking at 343 and basically looking at how 343 has handled the Master Chief and the Halo franchise. And the conclusion I came to was the fact of Bungie was taking the Halo franchise in a direction that didn't have Master Chief. So to basically give you a recap, my sort of end conclusion was the fact of at the end of Halo 3, they put John in deep space, and that was them basically shelving the Master Chief, being like, he's always out there, and if we ever need to bring him back, and if we ever want to revisit the Master Chief, we know where he is. He's in deep space. Basically, we put him in the fridge, technically, because they put him in a cryopod, and there he is. We're going to leave him there, and then when we need him, we'll thaw him out and we'll bring him back. So in the meantime, what they did the likes of Halo ODST. They told the story of a ODST shock trooper who's not a Spartan. He hasn't got quick reflexes. He is technically just a human. He is the best of he's special forces, but he's no Spartan. So it told a different story. And I still to this day say that Halo ODST is one of the best sort of like one of the best sort of stories in Halo. I don't get me wrong, there are, I love Halo Reach as well, but Halo Odyssey is one of my favorite stories because it just tells a human story, and I like that, and I like that direction that they were going in. And then obviously the next big game and the last game they made in conjunction with 343 was Halo Reach, and again Halo Reach brought it back to the Spartans, but then it told a human story to the Spartans. It's one thing that they didn't really do with Master Chief. They did it with a bit. They made Master Chief somewhat human in Halo 2 and more so in Halo 3. But with Halo Reach, they very much made the people under the masks, like you actually saw their faces. Apart from Noble Six, you actually saw Noble Team's faces. You actually could relate to them. You could understand them, and you was with them through this battle. And as each one of the Noble Team died and sacrificed themselves, I know spoilers. Sorry. It's an old game. You should have played it by now, to be honest. But as each one of them died and sacrificed themselves, you had a connection, and I did. And I had a connection, and I cried when each one of them died, and I cried when Noble Six died. Because it was a powerful story, and it was you didn't need Master Chief. It was done like it took other Spartans, and it just showed that we can tell a story in the Halo universe without Chief. It is possible. And then the flip side. Then you get 343 that basically decided to make Call of Duty with Halo, bring back Master Chief, and they did a somewhat alright job with Halo 4. Halo 4 wasn't a bad-ish game, and it wasn't bad in terms of story. The multiplayer was quite fun. But then they did Halo 5, and then they've done Halo Infinite, and I still haven't actually gone back to play Halo Infinite yet. I don't even play it online. For anybody who doesn't know, basically, I made a pact with myself. I played 1 hour of Halo Infinite when it came out on Game Pass. I felt completely confused. I didn't know where I was, what was going on, story-wise, what was happening. And I basically realized that to fully understand what was going on just in that first hour, I needed to read at least 10 books. 10 books and a few comics just to kind of understand. And my main argument was that that's not fair, that's not right, and that you shouldn't have to do that. And it's the same with Halo 5. I'm currently reading through Glasslands at the moment, which is a prequel to Halo 5 to kind of give you, well, actually prequel to Halo 4, and it kind of tells you how the Infinity, the big ship, was made and that sort of thing. So in those books, I'm actually understanding a lot of the things that I didn't understand in Halo 4 a lot more. So Halo 4 is making more sense. But my main argument was that I didn't like how 343 dealt with these sort of things, how they decided to tell story. Instead of telling it in the game, they decided to tell it elsewhere in the books and in other forms of media, which is all right if you're like me. You read comic books and you read books. It's fantastic. But most audiences don't. Most reviewers and gamers aren't going to do that. So if they're confused and they don't know what's happening, it's going on with the story, they're going to lose faith and lose sort of all confidence in whatever story you're trying to tell because they don't know the full story. You know what I mean? And these were 2 long, big episodes that I did. It was a 2-parter. Definitely, they're worth checking out as well. Obviously, all the things I want to talk about is worth checking out, obviously. But it was a really fun one. And if you're into gaming and you're into Halo, that franchise is a franchise I feel really strongly and deeply about. It's ingrained in me. It is definitely a cornerstone in my gaming lexicon. So that's definitely one to check out. I highly recommend it. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm very proud of it. It felt like a dissertation. Like generally, if I was in university and they told me to write a dissertation on what's happened to Halo, that's how I would do it. I would take it first, looking at how Bungie dealt with it, come to my conclusions there, and then I would look how 343 handled it, and then just overall wrap it up of X, Y, and Z. Obviously, I won't give you the end wrap up because you need to listen to it to figure it out. But those part 1, part 2 is a very good episode, and I'm very proud of them. Especially how they were my early work, and I was still learning how to podcast, and I was still learning about how to do notes and stuff like that, and still finding out how to do the mic and stuff and all that jazz. So considering all that stuff that was against me, I'm quite proud of that one. Or those 2 parts, should I say. My next one was my Discworld Beginner's Guide. So basically, this one's quite self-explanatory. I'm a big fan of Terry Pratchett. I'm a huge Terry Pratchett fan. I'm obsessed with the man. I'm obsessed with his work. I haven't been this obsessed with an author since I first discovered Douglas Adams. When I first discovered Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I wanted to devour everything that he'd ever written, and I have done. I've read everything. I've read all of his Doctor Who stuff. I've read all of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've read his detective novels. I've read his short stories. I've read his autobiography. I've read a lot. I think I've pretty much read everything that he ever wrote. Um, and I haven't been. It's not since him that I've been this devoted to an author. Um, and then I found Tolkien, and then again, it's the same thing. I'm just addicted to him. And again, the same thing about Douglas Adams was the fact that I discovered the guy, absolutely fell in love with him and his work, and then found out that he'd passed away back in the 90s before I was born. That was an upset. That was a bummer. Um, and then to kind of fall in love with Terry Pratchett, but already knowing that he'd passed away in 2014, and that I'd always wanted to read the Discworld. I'd always wanted to read Terry Pratchett's work. But the Discworld is a very confusing place. You don't know where to start, because you have the wizards, and then you've got the witches, and you've got death series, and it's like, okay, where do I start? Do I start here? Do I start there? It's all very confusing for somebody who doesn't know where to begin, or hasn't ever read anything by Terry Pratchett. And by the time I finally figured it out, he'd long since passed away, and it still breaks my heart that I never got into his work when I had the opportunity, and I never got to meet him. And it's one of those things that still bothers me, because with Douglas Adams, he was already dead before I was born, but with Terry Pratchett, he was alive while I was alive. Well, I still am technically. But he passed away in 2014, so there was an opportunity to get into his work a lot earlier, and hopefully maybe potentially meet him, or even just kind of say tweet him on Twitter or something, or send him a letter just to say thank you. And that's all I really want. I know it sounds silly. I'm making myself emotional now. I don't know if you can tell. But it would have just been nice just to write him a letter just to say thank you. I know it sounds quite silly and cheesy, but that would have been a lovely thing to do. Even if he never replied back, it would have been nice. But basically, long story short, because of how much I struggled to get into the Discworld, I basically decided to do a beginner's guide, where I broke down all of Pratchett's characters. Well, not all of them, but the main ones: Rincewind, Granny Weatherwax, the guards, Corporal Carrot, Nobby Nobs, all that sort of thing. I broke all the characters down into each sub-series. So, for example, Rincewind, I started with Colour Magic, Light Fantastic, Eric, and so on and so forth. And then I also did it for the Witches, and I did it for the Night's Guard and that Night Watch and that sort of thing. And I just said that this is where you begin. These are some of the episodes. These are some of my favourites in each one of those. You also have certain books like Small Gods and Pyramids that have nothing to do with any of the main cast, but are still Discworld novels that you can read as a standalone on their own. Even though they might have characters in other stories that will come into them, they are standalone stories. And I just stripped the Discworld down completely till it was its bare bottom, and I just said, start here if you want to start here. If you're interested in death, start here. But my main recommendation with the Discworld is to read it chronologically. Because the way the Discworld's written, and one of the wonders of Terry Pratchett, was the fact of every book that he wrote, even if it was he wrote, for example, Soul Music, which is part of the Death series. I think that's I think that's like the third book, if I remember correctly. That's the third book in the Death series. But the way it's written is that you could pick that up if you went into a bookstore and that was the only Terry Pratchett book they had. If you could pick that up and still enjoy it and still love it and still feel like you got a beginning, middle, and end, that you didn't need to read anything else to really understand it. You just picked it up, you read it, and you enjoyed it. And if that was the only Pratchett book you ever read in your life, you would still feel like you have you'd still feel like you'd gotten what you wanted, which is a good story. That's how they're written. One of the beauties of it, though, and one of the beautiful things I find of the Discworld and of Terry Pratchett's work is the fact of you can read his books like that, but if you read the books in chronological order, you get to see how each character evolves, and especially when death constantly pops up into each story, and with each time you read one of the books in chronological order, death is slowly changing, and the way he's written and the way he feels is different because he's getting older. As time in the Discworld is moving on, as the years go on in the Discworld, characters get older, character traits and things change. So, for example, when you first meet Corporal Nobbs, he is, well, Corporal Nobbs, really. There's nothing really to explain of him. He's just Nobby Nobbs. But by the time you get further down into the story, he's a bit more developed. Like, he's still Nobby Nobbs, but he's Nobby Nobbs. And again, that's if you're a fan of the Discworld, you know what I mean. Like, I chose the wrong character to really describe it. Like, here you go, Corporal Carrot. When you first meet Corporal Carrot, again, he's like Two Flower. He's new to the world, to Ankh-Morpork. He's new to customs of a big city. You know, he lives with dwarves. He just knows the dwarfish way. And then when he gets to Ankh-Morpork and he joins the Night Watch, and he's still kind of very naive, but he's also very clever, and a lot of people underestimate him. That as you go through that, not just the first Guards, which is the first Guards book, the Night Watch book, as you go through that series, eventually you get to a point where you realize that he's actually very clever, that he's very brave, and that I haven't read all of the Guards books, so I can't say how he ends up being. But you learn a lot more about him as time goes on, and you just get that overarching evolution of the characters if you read it in chronological order. So whenever I had all my friends, I always tell them, like, to start with the Colour of Magic. Colour of Magic, I really enjoyed it, but for a lot of people, it might not be Terry Pratchett's strongest sort of book, but it's still a very fantastic story, and I highly recommend just starting at the beginning and working your way down the list. If you have Goodreads, it's all on there. Just follow that list, or the list is on would be online somewhere. But generally, just start the Colour of Magic and just work your way down, and you'll have one hell of a fantastic time. And that's what that episode was about. Was just trying to break it down as a beginner's guide to let people know where to start and where to begin. And one of the things that I loved when I posted it to Twitter was Rihanna Pratchett, who is Terry Pratchett's daughter. She retweeted it and she liked it, and that was really nice. That was a quite lovely thing. I'm a fan of her work. I'm a fan. She's a fantastic writer as well, and definitely worth checking out. His daughter, she's incredible talent herself. Very much like her dad, but obviously in her own style. But that was nice as well when I posted the episode to Twitter and she retweeted and liked it, and like that really made my heart sort of warm up to know that somebody in the Pratchett family noticed that my love for that world. I'm going to get emotional again, so I'm going to quickly move on. But that was a really, really fantastic episode that I did. The next one I want to mention is the episode, my 10th. For some unknown reason, I basically decided, but if I got to 10 episodes, I was going to celebrate, which is funny because I got to my 50th episode and I didn't celebrate. But for some unknown reason, I decided if I could do 10 episodes, that was like a celebration worthy. So I figured for my 10th episode, I would talk about the Ninth Doctor. And one thing I do want to pause here and just say, I do want to do a lot more Doctor Who stuff next year. One thing that I've realised that I haven't covered as much as I'd wanted to this year was Doctor Who. I really love Doctor Who. I really, really do. And especially how the specials coming out next year as well. David Tennant's back as the 14th Doctor. I have no idea how that works, but I love it. I'm there for it. But I've got loads of Doctor Who books from David Tennant's era, and I do plan on sitting down and watching David Tennant's era and doing a by season episode, just talking as each season goes on. So when we get David Tennant's first season and how he goes from when he first starts, and at the very end of it, he loses Billy Piper, he loses Rose, and then the next series he's got Martha. So I wanted to do a by series sort of thing. But for this episode, when I did the Ninth Doctor, I'd already watched all of Christopher Eccleston's series, and obviously he only did the one series, sadly. But I'd also read all the books, that goes with the series, all the sort of Christopher Eccleston sort of adventures. I haven't yet gotten around to the big finish Christopher Eccleston Ninth Doctor stories. I am planning on getting those, but if anybody knows Big Finish, knows that you have to sell a kidney to actually to listen to at least one. So it probably won't be a while before I get it, but that's one thing I want to listen to. I want to do the Big Finish and maybe do an episode on the Big Finish episode on some of the Big Finish episodes, because I love Big Finish. They're fantastic. But I just decided with the ninth episode, the my 10th episode, to talk about the Ninth Doctor and really break it down of my sort of, again, my sort of ideas and my theories of who the Ninth Doctor was, with also having the hindsight of the War Doctor and what happened with um, with the 10th and the 11th Doctor, when they all sort of converged with the whole Bad Wolf sort of thing, and how the Doctor had basically come out from the Time War to basically being a new man. The Time War was now over, but he was still very much a warlike sort of, no shit taken sort of person, sort of Doctor, and that Rose really helped him come out of that and basically become the Doctor again, because I like to think that Christopher Eccleston's Doctor was very much the lost Doctor. He was the Doctor that didn't know who he was. He wanted to be the Doctor again, and he wanted to prove himself that he could be the Doctor again. But because the war had basically affected him so much that he struggled a lot of times knowing if he still could be the Doctor, if he was actually allowed to call himself the Doctor anymore. And you might it's that's to really understand that character and to understand what I'm trying to say, it's best to read the books, because the books really explain it in a lot more detail. You get a lot more sort of personal moments with the Ninth Doctor, where he talks about his struggles and how he's basically trying to be a better person, a better alien, a better Time Lord, a better sort of Doctor. Um, and so I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about my thoughts and theories. I had planned to obviously talk about Doctor Who a lot more in this season, but I just didn't get time, and there were so many things, and then yeah, just didn't find the time. But I do promise you that in season 2, I will talk about Doctor Who a lot more. I promise you that. Doctor Who will be become a staple, definitely. I won't become a Doctor Who centric podcast, but you will hear a lot more of the Gallifreyan. I do promise you there. And finally, the last sort of episode that I want to talk about, I want to highlight, was Psychonauts 2. I did a game review on Psychonauts 2. It was part of my So I Finally Played series. So I finally got around to Psychonauts 2, and generally, if before I played A Plague Tale Requiem, Psychonauts 2 was my game of the year. It's generally such a fantastic fun time. I loved my time with Psychonauts 2. The world, the characters, um, everything was just everything was just wonderful. And the subject matter as well, how it dealt with mental health, how it dealt with different types of mental health, different types of struggles. And they didn't hold back on any of the mental health struggles. They really properly dealt with them each really well, and to know that they sat down with real mental health specialists to make sure that they represented each one correctly, and to make sure that they did them all, a rightful service, because there would be people out there playing the game who might be dealing with said mental health issues, and if they would do it, and like if they weren't properly dealt with these topics, you'd be doing a lot of people. You could be doing a lot of harm. So I just respect for that, and I respect for the gameplay, and I just respect it completely. It's generally a fantastic game, and it's one that I'm surprised a lot of people still haven't played, considering that it's technically it's on Game Pass and it's free, and it's a hell of a lot of fun, and it's really accessible. Yeah, it's if it wasn't for Plague Tale Requiem, that would still be my game of the year. But my game of the year now is Plague Tale Requiem. And I did a whole video on that, episodes. You can go back and check that one out if you wish. And also, go back and check out the Psychonauts 2 episode as well. That was a lot of fun. And I really hope they make a Psychonauts 3, or even they do some. I would love DLC for Psychonauts 2 because there are a few questions left open at the end of it. So I'd like some a story expansion maybe, or even I know it's kind of crazy to say this, but even I just had a thought, an online mode to have friends, other Psychonauts, and just kind of do some crazy Psychonaut sort of adventures or time trials or something like that. With other people online would be quite fun. But as a single player sort of focus sort of game, an expansion would be fantastic. But you know, we'll see. We'll see what 2023 throws at us. So that's it for honorable mentions and my favorite topics. On to the next part. So my favorite movie this year, the best movie I watched this year for me was Doctor Who. Doctor Who. No, it wasn't. It was the Doctor, but it wasn't Doctor Who. It was Doctor Strange 2: Multiverse of Madness. To me, that's the best movie I've seen this year. Now, I will say this, and I will be completely honest and do a huge disclaimer. I haven't watched Black Panther 2 yet. I haven't watched The Batman yet, which I know I still feel bad about myself that I haven't watched The Batman yet. Mainly, again, I've just been that busy. But I am planning to get into it as soon as possible, and you will see a review for that movie quite early when I come back for season 2. So look out for that one. But again, as of a lot of new movies, I haven't watched a lot of new movies this year because I haven't really been interested in a lot of the films coming out this year, apart from a lot of the big Marvel ones. I was let down with Thor: Love and Thunder. I enjoyed it, but like it wasn't what I was hoping it was to be, and it wasn't what I thought it would be. But I think Marvel now know that, and they've realised the mistake they made with that movie, and hopefully, in the next sort of stage, in the next sort of lot of movies for the years to come, they kind of fix that. But out of the movies that I've watched, and again, it's not a lot. To me, my most favourite one is Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, mainly because it bridged the line between horror and like supernatural and superheroes. Like it actually felt like a Doctor Strange comic book. I haven't read many Doctor Strange comic books, but the ones I have read, like the Death of Doctor Strange, for example, those books don't hold back. Those stories visually, they go very creepy, scary, very dark. And if you have to imagine, if you're dealing with the mystic arts, if you're dealing with the mystical side of it, you're going to meet demons, and you're going to go to places that look like hell, and you're going to meet a very lot of unsavory, scary, spooky, creepy sort of people, sort of things. And when you add in the Scarlet Witch, who she is a very scary individual as it is, Elizabeth Olsen does a fantastic job of scaring the shit out of me. And then you get somebody like Sam Raimi, who did the Evil Dead movies. To me, it's just a win-win. And then, granted, there was a lot of fan wank in the movie. A lot of, here's Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four. Here's Charles Xavier from the X-Men. And it even played the song of and like, don't get me wrong, I was having a full-on nerdgasm all the way through this movie. Like, I get it. They put it there as a fan service. Nothing more, nothing less. And I get that, and I completely respect it. But I just loved it. It was the same thing with the Spider-Man, with the latest Spider-Man movie. Yeah, again, it was fan wank. It was bringing back Tobey Maguire. It was bringing back Andrew Garfield. It was bringing back the old classic villains that we all love and enjoy. Like, it was doing all that, and again, it was fan service, but it was done in such a way where it worked with the story, and it made sense, and it was wonderful. Again, another nerdgasm right there. And that's the thing, really, is the fact of some people don't like when they do the whole fan service thing. People think it's cheap, but not me. I love it. I think it generally, it heightens, and it actually benefits everything. It benefits the movie. It benefits the story. Like, you can have fan wank and it not benefit, but in that case, it all made sense. It all worked. If they're going to a different dimension, there's a high potentiality they're going to meet another set of Avengers. These Avengers happen to be, Fantastic Four happen to live in this world. X-Men happen to live in this world. Like this movie has that much of an effect on me. I still think about it now. I still, every now and then, I'll sit there and think of, are they going to resolve what happened in that universe? Because at the end of that, like in that movie, again, spoilers, in that movie, Scarlet Witch destroys basically their version of the Avengers. She turns Reed Richards into biscotti. She chops Captain Carter in half. Monica Rambeau gets crushed. Charles Xavier gets his neck snapped. The only person they've already lost their Doctor Strange anyway. The only person in their team that's still alive is Mordo. So again, it's the fact of, well, is there going to be repercussions on that? You know, are we going to get Sue Storm and the Thing and all that trying to get revenge on the Scarlet Witch for basically killing her husband? Because, you know, as we've realized, he has kids, you know, and then his kids are quite powerful as well. So his kid's going to come get revenge. Again, it's the fact of the X-Men. The X-Men are going to decide to get revenge. You know, like how, like I'm sitting there thinking, what about the stability of that universe now? Now they've lost all the heroes. What's next? You know what I mean? So it's one of the movies that still lingers with me. Unlike, you know, Thor and stuff like that, where I don't really care. Because again, it didn't give me anything to tell me what's happening next. It just tells me that at the end of it, Thor has a child. Again, spoilers. Apologize. But it's not taking me anywhere. But like Doctor Strange, it still lingers with me, and it's still one of the best movies I've seen this year. And I love it. Absolutely love it. My favorite show this year was Buffy the Vampire. I finally finished Buffy. I watched all of the seasons, every single episode, and I even did a huge podcast episode on my sort of journey through Buffy. And I spoke about each characters. I spoke about some of my favorite episodes. I am now a Buffy head. I'm a huge Buffy fan. I love the show. I love the characters. I know they're doing like a soft reboot soon. I will give it a go. Now that I've seen I've seen all the Buffy shows. I haven't read any of the books or any of the comics. I've been told if you read the comics, that continues the story of where the show ends. So I will look into reading them in the future. But I will be very sort of picky with this new show, whatever it is and wherever they put it. I'll be quite picky with it, but I will give it a go. I will give it a watch, and if it comes out next year, expect an episode on it of my thoughts. But yeah, my favorite my favorite TV show this year was Buffy the Vampire. I know it's an old show, but again, I finally watched it all in 2022. So you know, it's a bit bit later than ever, but you know, I finished it. I enjoyed it. You know, so it's my favorite episode of this year. Again, as I mentioned, my favorite game this year was A Plague Tale 2. That was my favorite game. Plague Tale Requiem was absolutely amazing. I won't go into too much detail because I already went into it earlier. But definitely, Plague Tale Requiem. It's on Game Pass. Give it a go. You will not regret it. I did a whole episode on it, so go listen to that if you wish. But it's absolutely fantastic, amazing game. Highly recommend it. Game of the year for me. It should have won at the Game Awards. It didn't, and I'm still sore about that. But anyway, onwards and upwards. Got to move on. Can't sit here in regret. But I just wanted to mention that. And finally, to coming to the close, coming to wrap things up, I just wanted to give a few special mentions, a few special thanks to a few people. As I mentioned, I love and appreciate you all, and I just wanted to mention a few special people that have helped me or have been really nice and kind and supportive. And I just wanted to say thank you to these few people. I know a lot of people don't tend to do this, and I did think about doing this or not because my main fear, my main anxiety is if I leave somebody out. So I've made sure to write everybody down. But if I do miss you out, I do apologize greatly. And if you would, after you listen to this, and if I don't mention you, please do message me on Twitter and telling me that I left you out, and I will post a thing on Twitter just to kind of give you a thank you because I don't want to leave anybody out. So any way that I can thank everybody, I will do. But this is just a special mention, special thank you to special people. First of all, I want to say thank you to Alex Hobby from the Time for Your Hobby podcast. He was the first ever podcast sort of interview collab thing I've ever done ever. Well, I've done one since, but he was the first one ever that I did, and I was incredibly nervous. I was incredibly scared. He asked me if I would like to talk about my creative writing and talk about writing in general. And I knew that if I was to talk about this topic, I was going to have to get very emotional, very raw, and very sort of open and honest with my disability, my dyslexia, and that sort of thing. So I was quite scared and nervous for that. But he was so welcoming, so lovely. We had a joke before we even did the recording. We was having a laugh and a joke, and after we did this long, it's funny. We did this long interview that had to be like an hour or so long, maybe longer. And at the end of that, we ended up having another chat for another hour of just talking about things, and it was lovely. He's a lovely bloke, and I want more people to go check his podcast out. So that's Alex Hobby from Time for Your Podcast. What he does is absolutely wonderful. He gets people on to talk about their hobbies and their joys and things that they love and that sort of thing. And it's very it's a lovely thing. It's very unique. It's very nice. He's recently had a baby, so he might be a bit busy. But if you give him a follow and tell him I sent you, I think he'd be really appreciative of it. And also, if you have a podcast and you have a hobby and you want to talk about it more, definitely get in touch with him about it. He's always looking for people to talk about the things they love. So definitely get in touch with him if you want to be on his show. Again, he's a very lovely bloke, so he's very easy to talk to. So there's no need to worry if he's going to be horrible or not. He's really lovely. Also, next I want to say thank you to Sean from Review It Yourself. Again, Sean he's the person I've done the most collabs with. He's the only other person I've done most collabs with. He's really lovely. He's a British bloke. He's a British guy. We have a laugh and a joke. If you listen to any of our episodes, we just talk about random crap, really. Mostly very British things like Bake Off, and we also did an episode on the movie Signs. That's where we first met. That was the first collab that we did together on the movie Signs. I'll be honest with you, I'm still not a big fan of that film, and I do apologize about it because I know he loved it. It's not for me, sadly, but again, I just want to say thank you to Sean because for the laughs and the jokes that we've had this year. Again, it's the same thing with Sean. It's the fact that we'll do an episode and we'll talk for an hour. We'll talk for an hour before we start recording, and then we record, and then we talk for more. And it's just nice to meet a top bloke just to have a conversation with, who's on your level, who understands the ins and outs of podcasting, who understands the struggles of indie podcasting, and again, another top guy who just I feel like deserves a lot more recognition. And I just want to say thank you to him for also giving me a chance as well to go on his show, to make a fool of myself, and just to have a laugh. So I just want to say thank you to Sean for that. Next, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Dan and Lou from Casting Views. Again, but mainly I want to say thank you for them for making me question everything about life. Because anybody who knows the Casting Views folks, basically what they do each week, they do a topic where they basically cast views on different things. So one week it can be, quite recently they did stuff about different types of foods from McDonald's that we get here in the UK, but like America gets that we don't get, and Italy and that sort of thing. So they did that. They did one on one of my favorite ones that they did was different laws in the world and laws in Britain. Like I think there's a law about looking unseemly at somebody else's cow or something like that. Like I didn't even know that was a law. Like who knew just to look at somebody's I think it was like to look at somebody's like field or cow or something like that with a weird look on your face, that was like illegal. Who knew? I think I've got that right or wrong. I'm not really sure. It's been a while since I listened to it, but that was my favorite episodes. They did just weird laws from around the world and weird laws in the UK. But I want to say thank you for them for making me question my existence. So cheers for that, and also the fact of for them just being supportive. Whenever I do an episode, or whenever I post or drop things, they'll always like and retweet things, or they will DM me and just say, even if it's just it's just nice, like this in general. If you do something and somebody goes out of their way to message you either directly or private message and just says, that was amazing, I loved it, well done. Even if it's just a simple thing as that, it helps out greatly. And for the amount of times, again, not just Dan and Lou, I've had other people do it as well. But the amount of times I've just posted something and felt like maybe, it wasn't doing very well, and for Dan or Lou to message me and be like, that was great, I loved it, well done, was nice, you know. Um, and a lot of these people that I mentioned here, again, they all do it as well. So I'm just really grateful. I'm trying my best not to get emotional about it, because it's just really nice to be accepted and to be welcomed into this podcasting family. Again, podcast has been around for a long time, and this family is huge, and just to kind of join, like, it feels like I joined late, but it feels like I've been here for a long time as well, because I felt so welcomed. So it's very lovely, very lovely indeed. Um, next, I want to mention Chat Tsunami. Chat Tsunami, again, is a fantastic podcast. Um, him and Green Shield Chatsu and Green Shield do a fantastic job each week. They did a whole month on Terminator, which I thought he was crazy to do, but he pulled it off, and it was absolutely fantastic. So Chat Tsunami, they're fantastic as well. The Doom Generation ladies, Nicole and Tessa, I love them. To be honest, I toot their horn too much. I literally brown nose them a lot, mainly because I just love both of them and I love what they do. Um, Nicole and Tessa always make me laugh. They always lift me my spirits up whenever I've been down this year. Whenever I listen to any one of their episodes, no matter what it is, it always makes me laugh. Like they every time they say French cut, I'm like, I know what they're talking about. It makes me laugh. And it's those in jokes where like they don't I don't think they do intentionally. It's just a fact of, as they watch and review sort of films, they will nitpick certain funny moments or certain funny things, or like, for example, there's one thing about this girl saying, I think she like, well, women in movies keep saying they weigh 100 and something so pounds or something like that, so American, and they keep like, so she's like, no honey, you're not, and I'm like, I just laugh because I'm like, oh, I get that reference. I feel like whenever I watch it, I just feel like a little kid, and I feel like Captain America in the Avengers movie, where he sits and he goes, that I get that one, and he's like, I get that reference, like I feel like that, and it always makes me smile. And whenever I'm down, they always bring me back up. So the ladies at Doom Generation, I wanted to mention them. um Also, two friends of mine, Chandler and Hunter, at Game Gains, they're quite new to the podcasting sort of scene. Again, they do in-depth looks into video games and stuff like that. They mostly talk about Call of Duty, but they have been known to branch out and to do other things, about the Activision and Xbox deal, any sort of big sort of gaming sort of news or things going on specifically in certain games online. They talk about it. They don't get as much love as I would like. So I would like everybody listening to this to go check out Game Gains on Twitter, and check out their Spotify podcast as well. Subscribe, like, and all that jazz, because generally they put a lot of work in. They've also got a YouTube channel. They put a lot of work in, but they don't seem to get as much praise and love as they deserve. So Game Gains, check it out. Absolutely amazing what they do. Also, I want to mention Weird Horizons, Hannah at Weird Horizons. I did a Twitter post about her as well. How basically she's an underdog. How she doesn't get the appreciation and the time of day, as people don't give her as much time of day as they should. Her work is lovely. She's got a very fantastic voice, very sort of soft, very ASMR sort of type voice. And I just like to put her episodes on when she's talking about supernatural and conspiracy theories and aliens and witches. I just love to put her stuff on and just to kind of listen to it, and just she's just got a wonderful voice, and she puts so much work into her research. You can tell whenever she's talking that she's generally researched this topic completely. She's put a lot of work into it, and it just feels like more people should be aware of her and what she does. So Hannah at her Weird Horizons, I just want to shout her out. The Manic Pixie podcast, for basically liking and retweeting and supporting me. Everything that I post, she's one of the first people there to like and retweet it. I've never actually properly sat down and spoke to the Manic Pixie. I really should do, because of how much love and appreciation and support she gives me. But I just wanted to shout her out because it makes me laugh. I know that I will post something, and eventually, within an hour to 30 minutes, she will have liked and retweeted it. And I just think it's funny and I love it. It's like I turn it into a game. I'm like, whatever I post, how quick will she like and retweet it? You know, I just think it's funny, and I just like to play this little game with myself. But I do appreciate the support that she does, and she likes and retweets everything, and it's really really appreciated. I really I love it. Thank you. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you for the support. Um, and yeah, so to end it all off, I ask a question: what does the future hold? Well, I don't know really, and I know that's not a great way to start off. Um, my plans as of yet, I've got a huge list of topics I want to look into next year. As I mentioned, I want to look into Doctor Who more. I want to look into doing a lot more sort of up to date modern sort of video games as well as looking more into doing what I did before, looking deep into like topics like, as I did with Halo. I'd like to do a deep dive into Mass Effect. I'd like to do a deep dive into Bioshock, into other series like that. Again, with movies as well, I'd like to do a lot more sort of film sort of reviews, but like older sort of films, a lot of older sort of TV shows. Like I was looking into watching. I've never watched, for example, The Last Airbender. I've been told it's amazing. But it's all on Netflix. So I was thinking about doing a season by season series on The Last Airbender. So that's one thing I want to look into. I've got a new mic. So hopefully I'll look for this. I'll sound a lot more sexy and a lot more sort of wonderful in season 2. I'm still using my old one. I want to use my old one for as long as possible. For just for this, and then when I start season 2, then I'll treat you all to a new sexy mic. But yeah, from what the future holds, I have big plans for season 2. One thing I do want to say though, I am going to take a break for a while in the new year. As I mentioned, on the 6th or 8th of January is my 1 year anniversary. So I will come back for my 1 year anniversary, and I will do an episode there. I don't know what it's going to be about, but I will do something for my 1 year anniversary. Um, so that will be happen for that, and then after that I'll probably take a break for a while. I don't know for how long. Mainly because what my plan is, I want to be ahead of myself. So I want to watch all the films, watch all the TV shows, play all the games that I want to do episodes on them all and have a good backlog of episodes. That way, that each week when I do come back, I can release an episode and I can be at least 3 to 4 episodes ahead of myself, so that I always have. There's never a rush, so I always have at least an episode to go, so that I've got more time to focus on the next episode and the next one. And so I just want to be at least 3 to 4 episodes ahead of myself. So it will be a while. I will take a break for a while. It's also, I'm currently writing a book. So I also want to sit and focus on the writing of the book, which I'm currently at the middle of that book at the moment. So yeah, it's going fantastically, but downside of doing the podcasting is the fact of it's taking a lot of time away from me, and also I'm going to be doing a lot more volunteering and stuff like that next year, so that's ramping up. So I just want more time to other things, other hobbies that I have, and then once I'm ahead of myself and I've gotten to a place where I'm comfortable, then I'll start season 2, and then we'll have a fantastic time. Um, but yeah, so that's what the future holds. When it will begin, I don't know, but you will know. You'll be told, and you'll find out when. But I am very much looking forward to season 2, and I just want to end things again by just rehashing. I'm thankful to everybody, and I'm grateful and appreciated of everybody who listens every week, everybody who bulks up my episodes and listens to them one after the other, people that follow me on YouTube, people that follow me on Twitter, people that like and share my stuff, retweet, people who engage with my episodes, who after they've listened to them message me, say, you know, they agreed or disagreed, or they liked the episode, or or people who give me tips of things to try, softwares and headsets and all that jazz. You know, anybody who's ever just helped me, anybody who's gone out of the way just to kind of give me just even just the minute smallest bit of support, it still, even if it's the smallest bit of support, it still feels very huge to me. And I'm very appreciative of everybody and anybody who goes out the way to help me and support me in this venture, in this dream of mine. um so I just want to end by just saying thank you to everybody. And yeah, it's been one hell of a ride this year. I never thought I'd ever get this far. I generally thought I'd do the podcast for a bit, um, and you know, see how it goes. And I didn't think it'd ever go as well as it has. Really, I didn't think I'd have this many people listening regularly. I didn't think I'd meet such wonderful, lovely people. I didn't think I'd get as much support as I generally thought. I'd do a few episodes, and then it would fizzle out, and nobody would listen, and it would get to a point where um, yeah, people would just not want to listen anymore. So I generally just want to say thank you to everybody, and I wish you all a very. I wish you all had a fantastic Christmas. I know it's a bit late now; Christmas is over, but I wish and hope everybody had a fantastic Christmas, and I hope that everybody has a fantastic New Year, and that whatever comes for you next year is fantastic, and whatever comes in season 2 will be fantastic, and you will all stay and enjoy it. And yeah, I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening to me babble today. Thank you for listening to me babble for the whole of the year. Um, and yeah, for the final time in 2022, I have been your host, Luke. Thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you in the next one. All right, guys. See you next year. Happy New Year.